This is not the country that we were born and bred in and brought up in. I don't recognise it. The survivors were mostly men because they'd taken the life jackets from the women and children. As an ordinary Indigenous Brit, not only are we under threat from the crime that's taking place, we've also become under threat from our own government. I think Keir Starmer is a very, very dangerous man.
I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health. Paul.
Liam.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, brother. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it is a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to picking your brain, hearing your views, your take, your opinions on the latest level of madness, because there's no disputing what's going on in the UK at the moment is utter madness, but there's levels to it.
Yeah.
Before you get into this, if you follow Paul and you don't know his complete story, there is a part 1 on this channel. If you go back 7-8 months, you'll see a very, very interesting podcast indeed. And if you're a fan of Paul's, you'll love it. So towards the end of that podcast, after we'd got your life story, which was fabulous because I rewatched it yesterday with a smile on my face, we then touched base at the end of that chat about the state of the country, where it was heading, our concerns, labels people give others with difference of opinion. And it seemed like just a nice, ordinary, common sense chat. And we're now sat here 8 months later. You changed your channel from watches, buying, selling, reviewing, exposing the industry and the frauds. Watch crime. And then you decided to change your channel to, well, what would you say your channel became, and why did it change in the direction it did?
Going to blame you, Liam, to a degree, because
Always.
we've known each other for a few years. Always had a lot of respect for you and as a person, and it kind of made me realise when I came to see you, I'd realised that I've been living a lie. I've been living a lie. I've been a successful businessman, fairly successful, not uber successful, but I've done all right. But I wasn't really happy inside. And the reason I wasn't happy is because I could see my country falling apart. I could see that there was no future for my children and my grandchildren. And when I came to see you, we spoke about your friend, Tommy, at the time. I didn't know him, never met him. Always been interested in what he had to say. Always felt he'd been a malign character. But never really sure about the real person. Always interested in what he had to say, but was mindful about the things the media had to say about him. Was it true? Was it untrue? What was he really like? But deep down, I had a massive concern for the future of this country, but I was too afraid to say it. And the reason I was too afraid to say it is that I was too busy earning money, too busy earning a living. And I didn't want to put my living at risk. Didn't want to put my family at risk. I didn't want to put my reputation at risk. I was a coward. That's the bottom line. It was a cowardly thing. And I came to see you, we had a chat, and I left, and I thought, 62 at the time when I came, I thought 62. If I don't do this now, I'm going to die a lie. My life is going to slowly but surely come to an end, and I'm going to lay on my deathbed and think, you coward, you bowled out, And I didn't want to do that. And we got talking, and you mentioned Tommy and your views on him, and blow me, a few weeks later, he left me a voice message saying he'd like to have me on his podcast. and we spoke, and I thought I'd like to get to know this guy. I'm interested. Just out of curiosity as much as anything. Is he the man, the myth, or the monster? Which one is he? No idea. Never met the guy. But in the meantime, I had to come out. Forget Tommy, forget anything else. I had to come out and voice an ordinary working man, granddad, father, no criminal record, never been in trouble, live a decent, clean life. I don't take drugs, I don't drink. Pint of shandy, that's me lot. I needed to come out and tell the truth about the way that our country was going or is going for the sake of my children. I often talk about leaving a legacy. I think I spoke about that in the last video. What legacy am I leaving for my kids and my grandkids if I can't even find the courage to tell the truth? So I pivoted, and I never realised how much people need a voice and want a voice. How much I've still not got my head around this to this day. To think that there's so many people out there that need someone as ordinary as myself to be their voice, to make them feel better, to make them feel more comfortable, to make them feel that they're not alone, to make them feel that they're not the only ones that feel this way. I didn't realise how big that need was. And it's huge, Liam.
What was the topic, your first political video?
It was just saying the UK is fucked, basically. And it was a clip from LBC. And the video had over 1 million views. And I thought, wow, I can't believe how much people need to hear this stuff. And, you know, my detractors will say, oh, you're chasing the money, you're chasing the audience. It's YouTube. Of course you're chasing the audience. If you can believe in what you're doing at the same time, that is a massive bonus. And all my life, I've tried to be involved in industries that have my heart and my head. You know, there's nothing more strong than talking about something that you're passionate about. And if you can make a living out of that as well, then brilliant, that's a bonus. But it's not a prerequisite. So for me, the passion came first, and the big audience just happened because of that. I think people can feel your passion.
Well, here's the thing. You're in your lane, and your lane was watches.
Yeah.
So a watch can't offend anybody. You're going to get people from both sides of the fence tuning into you.
Yeah.
So when people say you're chasing the audience, it's like, well, you say that, but immediately I'm going to alienate 50% of my audience. So you took a risk there.
Well, within a month, Liam, I lost $7,000 a month sponsorship. Within a month. As soon as I started talking about politics, all of my sponsors that came to about $7,000 a month all had to walk away from me.
For me, it was a breath of fresh air because I watch your videos, what you were doing, and I watched enough of them to get the tone of voice. Now, you tell me if I'm wrong, because I felt like you were putting your cock on the block for starters, putting your money where your mouth was, but your views, I would say, were just right of centre.
Yeah.
It certainly, for me, didn't seem like it was a right-wing channel. It certainly wasn't a far right-wing channel. I thought, well, this is a nice, balanced channel. I don't think you said one thing on your videos that I thought, actually, I disagree with that. I thought, great, you verbalised exactly how I feel about that exact thing. So why do you think, being slightly centre of right, which is by no means a crime, why do you think you lost sponsorship for that?
The threat from the other side, whoever the other side is, make your own minds up. But my sponsors were getting fake reviews. They were getting threats. They were getting telephone calls that if you associate with this guy, we're going to trash your business. We're going to ruin your reputation. I had a college lecturer in London from a certain group that was making himself very busy online, leaving fake reviews, contacting my sponsors, telling them that I was a far-right fascist, all nonsense, basically lies. And my sponsors knew that they were lies, but they didn't want the hassle, and it's understandable. I accept it. We're all still friends, but I understand that they don't want to they're in business to make money. They're not there to get involved in politics. So I totally get that. And I knew that I was going to lose those sponsors, but that was the risk that I was prepared to take for the cause. So for anyone that says to me, you did it for the money, no, I lost money. But it wasn't about money. If there's any money involved, through the views on YouTube, that is just a bonus. That helps. For me, it was all about the cause. But you're right. I class myself as a centrist. I'm right really in the middle of politics, slightly to the right. What I am is common sense. I'm all about common sense and caring for everyone that lives in this country legally, properly, pays their taxes, does the right thing, stay on the right side of the law. I have no interest in the extremes of politics, left or right. They're both a pain in the arse. The far right is dangerous. The far left is dangerous. But really, we're talking about the centre here. I'm probably an old school conservative.
We'll come back to the journey, but just for the people watching and listening, if they've not seen you before, it'll be good now to summarise, and then we can go back and get back on track. But just summarise what the cause is, what your overall message and desires are.
Desires, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, peace, love, harmony. Simple as that. Safety, law and order, basic family values, a safe future for our children, everyone's children. Don't care what colour you are, don't care about your religion, just want to live safely, happily. Freedom of speech, look after our sick, our young, our old. All the things that are good in life, all the things that we should all want to experience in a system that we should all be happy living in and under. And I don't think we've got any of that right now, or we have it. It's in danger, put it that way. I mean, I don't think our communities have ever been so divided in all my life. Our children face a very bleak and difficult future, I believe. Our elderly face a very bleak future, what they have left of their lives, through the lack of healthcare, waiting list times, all the usual stuff. We won't even talk about the heating allowances, but that's another story. And I've always said that the mark of a great nation is how it takes care of its young, its elderly and its sick. And we're not doing none of that at the moment. So we're not in a very good place. So all I'm looking for, when you ask what the aim is, a happy, safe, united, peace-loving country where everyone is equal.
And are there any colours, creeds or religions that you object to?
None.
As I thought.
None at all. Only extremities of any side. I've never believed that extremism works because history tells us that it doesn't. And there are no doubts that we have problems with some sections of society today with their extremism, with their beliefs. And if we don't recognise that and deal with it, I believe through dialogue, open, honest dialogue, then we're going to have a problem.
Do you think it's extreme behaviour that illegal, economic, unfettered migrants are being given entry to the country so freely?
Yeah, I think it's very strange, Liam. I mean, it's really strange. I don't have the answer as to why it's happening across Europe. I can guess, but it would probably be foolish to guess. But I just I'm an ordinary man, and I think that's why some people like the things that I say, because I give them simple answers. Look, if you was having a party at your house this weekend, you send out invites. You know who's coming, because your children are going to be in bed upstairs asleep maybe. Your money, your jewellery, your family goods are around the house, so you know who you're inviting into your home. You don't put a sign outside the door that says open house Saturday at 7 p.m. and anyone and everyone that you've never met before in your life, you don't know where they come from, you don't allow them in to walk around your house, walk past your children's bedroom. You like to know who you're inviting into your home, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Jewish. This is our home, all of our home. So I think it's advisable to know who we're inviting into our home. And I think the crime statistics and the problems that we're seeing prove that beyond a doubt, that what we're doing has and is failing. And it's not going to end well. But I don't know what the answer is because nobody seems prepared to tackle the problem.
The solution you would think would be simple. The
Very
Navy,
simple.
police the border, you can't come past here,
Yeah.
I'm afraid. You've got to fill in these forms, you've got to apply like everybody else, you've got to sit down with whoever you have to sit down with and prove that you can contribute towards the economy, that you're not a danger, that you have a clean slate, you've got no criminal history of violence or sexual assault. So when I use the word extreme, I use that word because I think it's extremely irresponsible of the government to allow anybody into the country, irrespective of colour, creed, religion.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
If we don't know anything about the human being, it's irresponsible and extremely dangerous to allow that to take place. And it's people like you and me and our families that they're the first to feel the full force of whatever takes place.
Look, Liam, I flew in back to Gatwick last night. We've been away for a week, and we'll get into that maybe a little bit later while I've been away. I couldn't come through Gatwick last night without a passport. And this is my home. This is my country. I was born here. So was my mum and dad. So was my grandparents and my great-grandparents and so on. We go back hundreds of years. I couldn't walk back into my own country last night without a passport. And I couldn't enter the country that I went to without a passport. And it just seems very bizarre to me that we're allowing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of unchecked men into this country, many of whom prove themselves to be not coming here with the right intentions necessarily. Some are, of course. I'm also very concerned about the numbers of women and children coming. Now, I heard a dreadful story. I mean, only this week we've had a capsized dinghy in the channel where a lot of people were killed. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I read a report. I want to put the caveat in there. Actually, it was on GB News. GB News said that the survivors were mostly men because they'd taken the life jackets from the women and children. If that's true, it's just beyond belief.
That's horrendous.
Because women and children first. Where are the women and children? You know, I have nothing, like you, I have nothing against refugees coming to this country if they're genuine refugees, particularly women and children. And I don't see many. In fact, I don't really see any. It's always the men.
I see people on X, and their argument is, since the start of time, if families are fleeing a war-torn country, they send the men first to scout out wherever they're going, and then the women and children
Follow later.
follow.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, it doesn't to me, Liam, but I mean, look, it might be a difference in culture. That might be the way that these people do things. I don't know.
But how many years do you leave your
well,
wife and kids behind?
Exactly. You don't leave that. I agree. I mean, look, there is no rhyme or reason to any of this.
I wouldn't leave my wife and child in a supermarket if there was a fight going on.
No.
I'd get them out
And then
I'd return.
yeah, exactly.
I would do it the other way round.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way that we would do it. So it's very concerning. It's very worrying. And for probably 2 or 3 years now, my family has been on the brink of leaving this country. My wife has been putting a lot of pressure on me to get the kids out, to get the girls and the grandchildren out. And for our own safety, you know, because what we feel now is that we are under threat. As an ordinary Indigenous Brit, not only are we under threat from the crime that's taking place, we've also become under threat from our own government in the respect that we no longer feel safe in our own country. Now, whether that perception is right or wrong, I don't think it really matters. That is our genuine perception, and the perception of a lot of ordinary working class British people right now. We do not feel safe in our own country.
When we were concerned about how lawless the UK had become 8 months ago, we used the word consequence, and we said there is no fear of consequence anymore. People are being left to do exactly as they please without the fear of consequence, which is why the crime rate is sky high. Knife crime, burglary, assaults on women. Fast forward 8 months, and people are now being sent to jail for writing Facebook posts and sharing tweets. What has happened since we last sat down with each other?
Well, a lot and not a lot. It's a contradiction of terms, but I'll explain it. People are still getting away with all those crimes, or a lot of those crimes, because they're being appeased in a lot of ways. And with appeasement comes empowerment. That's the problem. But the government are, and of course we've got a new government since our last chat, they are now focused very heavily and firmly on people that are saying the wrong things. I think Keir Starmer is a very, very dangerous man. I really do think that he is a very dangerous person. And we've seen that from some of the sentencing that has been beyond harsh, that borders on a civil rights struggle. In fact, I would say it is. We are in now a civil rights struggle. We're seeing people of my age and even older being sent to jail for the first time in their life. In other words, it's the first crime they've ever committed in their life for singing a silly song. Now, just let that sink in for a moment. That is beyond my comprehension. And after the riots broke out, we saw, and this is not to condone any of the silly things that went on, sick and tired of saying that, like we should even have to. None of us want to break the law. But then when they're putting people in prison for singing songs, silly songs, yes. Offensive, yes, maybe to some people. But you can hear an offensive song at every football ground in the country every Saturday afternoon. Is that next? Where does it end? Or is it just one particular song or one particular set of people that can be offended so much that you need to go to jail for that offence? Well, that's a blasphemy law.
When you said about Keir Starmer being dangerous, I'm just curious as to how many people concur with that statement, and I'm sure we'll find out in the comments, because you're saying that to me and I've already thought that. In fact, I've gone one step further in my thoughts, and I've thought his behaviour of late has been one of a psychopath, and I'll explain why, because it's a strong word. This is a man that's using the full force of the law to his advantage. He knows exactly how law works, being head of CPS for so many years. He knows how to play the game and play it well, and he's proved that you're not going to win with him, pure and simple. He'll use the law against you, tie you up in knots, and you'll become a political prisoner. Now, this all sounds extreme, and me using the word psychopath, but he is. First of all, they coined the riots race riots. Now, I'm sure we'll get into this. They had nothing to do with race. They were not racial riots. They had nothing to do with anybody's skin tone. Zero, nothing at all. They were riots from angry people against the establishment that have not listened for too many years. Enough was enough. So they coined the riots race riots. They then jail people for racially aggravated crimes. Some of them, men, women in their 60s, for writing inflammatory comments on social media. He's then making sure them people are fast-tracked through the courts into jail with hefty prison sentences for racially aggravated crimes, put in a jail that's heavily populated with people of different colours and creeds who are very unhinged and violent, that have lived a life of crime, that are used to that environment, and he's slinging relatively innocent people in amongst with the animals. For me, that's psychotic.
There were one or two, let's be clear, there were one or two racial attacks which were clearly racist. There was an incident where an Asian gentleman was punched, I believe, just because he was Asian. That's a racist attack. There was a shop, I believe, that was targeted because they were Asian. That's a racist attack.
There were racial attacks, and let's use this opportunity to fucking
But that's the far right.
Yeah, they don't represent the majority.
I believe, like you, that the majority of those people out on the streets, not the rioters, but the majority of the people out on the streets are just frustrated individuals. Some of them got carried away and said things that they shouldn't have said. Some of them were stupid enough to get into criminality. And I will admit I have trouble having too much sympathy with anyone that picks up and throws bricks. It's a stupid thing to do.
Agreed.
Setting fire to buildings, nah, you can't do it.
That was
ridiculous.
Just madness. What on earth? Well, I was just about to say, what were they thinking? They weren't thinking.
They weren't thinking.
Stupidity.
But it's been used as an opportunity
to tie everyone with the same brush.
Everyone with the same brush. And after the 27th of July, which I thought was the most successful event that I've ever seen.
What actually was it?
The 27th, it was a Unite the Kingdom event. You know, we saw what took place, 100,000 patriots in the centre of London. We had, like I said, people from every religion that you can think of. It was a day of love, of harmony, a day of red, white and blue in our hearts, where we could all get together, put our arms around each other and say, we're just proud to be British. Look at us all here. We're brothers, we're sisters. We had singers, the religious sing. What do you call them? Evangelical singers. Some of the loveliest people I've ever met in my life. Non-white, by the way. And we just had a beautiful day together. And I thought, this is the start of something really big. We can really try and unite the kingdom. Sod the politicians. If you want to split us up, you crack on with what you want to do, and we'll get on with getting on with each other. And it all went downhill, unfortunately, from there. Starting with the dreadful killing of 3 beautiful young children, which, of course, we can't talk about.
I don't think the incident at Manchester Airport helped things at all. I think that really, really got a lot of people angry, seeing as, I mean, two-tier policing is now a phrase that's used on every platform.
The thing is, Liam, it's not a phrase, it's a fact. It's an absolute, undisputable, irrefutable, plain as the nose in front of your face fact. And anyone that denies it is either lying through their teeth or just hasn't looked at the evidence. If you look at the evidence, this is factual. Like I said, for me, this is a civil rights, a human rights struggle.
So I'm going to put my 2 pence worth in on the 27th of July, the Unite the Kingdom event. I'm going to call it an event because it was by no means a protest. It was more like a concert. It was an event stroke concert.
Yeah, that's how it felt. It had a concert vibe. Yeah.
And I see it promoted all over X. I saw a lot of people campaigning against it. Just the sheer mention of Tommy Robinson's name was enough for people to stamp their feet and shout and holler and accuse the gathering of being something that it wasn't. So I thought, well, I'm an inquisitive guy.
Go and have a look.
I'm going to go and have a look. And from the second I got to Trafalgar Square, just hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands of people of all different colours, from all different religions. And I'm thinking, how on earth is anybody going to put a twist on this to denounce it? This is going to be near on impossible for people.
Yeah.
There wasn't a load of football lads shouting and screaming, throwing beer cans. It was predominantly families, friends, different colours. And as the day went on, the crowds got bigger and they remained just as peaceful, just as calm, just as friendly, just as loving. And the whole mixture and the whole diversity, which people on the loony side of the left will hate the fact that there was a right centre gathering concert that was diverse.
Yeah.
Like, to be there, it was really, really nice. Music, singing, clapping, light dancing, laughter, families, children. I had a mate in the crowd. Stuart Meadows, his name is, and he won't mind me using his name. I see him in the crowd. He shouted up, Liam. He's there with his children and his newborn.
Yeah.
His wife's breastfeeding his newborn in the crowd. That's how calm
It was
and peaceful it was.
Beautiful day.
So
beautiful day.
Just want to put, because then we're going to go back to you now, but just so there's actually two people that was at the same event that can say the same thing.
Yeah.
Because what I noticed the media now try and do is link everything together off the back of that gathering, because it was only a few days later that the riots took off.
Yeah.
We need to make it clear. We need to put an absolute barrier between 27th of July, Unite the Kingdom, because it was a complete separate entity and it had exactly zero to do with any uproar and any
it was
rioting.
Completely before. It was completely before. I mean, I agree totally, Liam. I mean, I've always said from day one, the moment I spied any racism or genuine Islamophobia, in other words, hating on Muslims simply because of their religion or anyone because of their religion, I was out. I'm out of there. And I haven't seen any. To this day, I haven't seen any of that. And even being around Tommy and getting to meet Tommy, it's been an interesting experience because we've eaten in a crowd together, etc., and we've spoken, we've had some meetings, and he's probably the most misunderstood person that I've ever come across in my life, ever. Now, unless he's fooling me, unless he's pulling the wool over my eyes.
And my eyes.
And yours, and a lot of other people's. This guy is one of the least racist people I've ever met in my life. Here's the problem with Tommy. He's a working class lad that calls things out for what they are. I think he's a great speaker, but he does it from a working class perspective. His message is no real different from Douglas Murray's or from Jordan Peterson's or from whoever, from the presenters at GB News, from some of the things that Piers Morgan says or Jeremy Kyle or whoever, or James O'Brien from the left. His message is as accurate as any of those people. He just says it with a working class accent, a bit like me. And the media won't accept that. And they've made him into this bogeyman that actually doesn't exist. And I think, this is my genuine belief, because when I was at the 27th, I would love nothing more to have walked over to the left with their placards saying, you know, smash the Nazis and all this nonsense. I would love to have gone over to the left and said, guys, can we have a chat? Because actually, I think we've got a lot more in common than you might think. We don't hate anyone. We don't want to just hate on people for their colour or their religion. We just want peace. How about, let's sit down, let's have a coffee, let's have a chat, because I think we can make this work together. The only hate that I've found, the only violence that I've seen has come from the left. The spitting, the throwing of punches, the vile abuse online has all come from the left. And I don't say that because I'm a, you know, massive far-right lunatic. I say that from a position of almost neutrality. I just want everyone to get on. But the only abuse that I've seen has come from that side, which is a shame because I'm sure that most of them aren't like that. But that's what I see a lot of the time. I haven't seen any violence from the so-called riot, apart from what took place at the riots, but They were individual. They were not organised. They were individuals making wrong decisions. None of those, as far as I could see at least, those riots were spontaneous. They just happened. There was no one online saying, meet here at 8 o'clock, be there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't see any of that. I don't know if you did.
No. I was keeping a close eye on it because I was intrigued how it blew up the way it did. I wasn't surprised.
No.
I wasn't surprised at all, but I was intrigued as to how does it get to a stage where so many men, there was a few women, but mostly men, but it is our job to protect our women and children. And I do believe that in the forefront of most people's minds that overstep the mark in their head, they're thinking they're doing this to protect the future of their wife and children. They all felt like they was on the front line.
When you talk about overstepping the mark, this is something that worries me. Someone went to jail for anti-establishment rhetoric. Now, what is anti-establishment rhetoric? And those on the left and the right need to take notice of this. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. If you're a member of the Socialist Workers' Party or you're a member of Reform at the other end of the spectrum, it doesn't matter. Anti-establishment rhetoric is a very dangerous term because it has no rules, it has no guidelines. Are we talking anti-establishment rhetoric right now? None of us want to break the law, but we need to know what breaking the law is. And anti-establishment rhetoric is a very broad term that could cover just about anything. I mean, it could cover, I'm sick and tired of these bloody potholes in the road. Is that anti-establishment rhetoric?
So when Keir Starmer come out and basically said everybody is going to feel the full force of the law, no matter what part you played, who's to deem those that played a part? Who's to say that that Facebook post played a part? Because some of these Facebook accounts were set to private and that they're people posting their opinions amongst their friends, which not one of them went out and threw a brick at a police officer. And again, just to be clear, anyone that was throwing bricks at policemen and setting fire to buildings,
stupid,
moronic behaviour.
And they got what they deserved. Throwing bricks and setting fire, you go to jail. End of story.
But there's a lot of people that I think have gone to jail completely unnecessarily to send a hard and fast message out to put the fear of God into people for ever speaking their opinion again. Lambs to the slaughter, absolute scapegoats. And what would have been nice if rather than Keir Starmer coming out saying everyone's going to feel the full force of the law, he should have come out and said, this is a public emergency announcement from government. Make sure everybody is listening. He should have done this immediately when tensions were building. These are the guidelines. This is the law. If you so much as do X, Y, and Z, you're going to jail. If you post something online that offends, intimidates, scares anybody of an opposite colour or faith, you're going to jail. I'm sure people would have thought, well, I won't post that today. Instead, he sat back, let all this play out, and then said, right, we're now going to come and find you. And then they're putting them the high-spec, really nice produced videos of these arrests out, these door knocks in the morning, escorting. See, 11-year-old boy got arrested. What's going to happen to him?
Well, this is what I say, Liam. I think this is almost becoming a human rights stroke civil rights thing. And I think the eyes of the world are on us. I think people around the world, in free countries around the world, are looking at what's going on here and with an eye of suspicion and an eye of concern, I hope. Because I think that when you start to attack your people, or not attack, sorry, when you start to target your people in that way, you're living in a very dangerous place and a very unhappy place as well. And anyone that's looking at it from the other side thinking, well, yeah, it serves them right, this is our enemies, being shut up. Well, they might think it's all right now, but as they always say, first they come for your enemies and then they come for you. So be careful what you wish for. And I think Keir Starmer just read the room badly wrongly. He just got it completely wrong.
Do you think Keir Starmer read the room wrong, or do you think he didn't care about the room?
That's a good point. I don't think he cares.
That's what I think.
I don't think he cares. And I think this country is in big trouble, deep, deep trouble.
It'll be interesting to see what happens to that Labour councillor that stood in the middle of hundreds of people calling for the throats to be slit of people with a different view.
Well, I think he'll get walloped. I think they have to.
He's in court tomorrow. This is going out next Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think he will get a hefty sentence. And I think the reason he'll get a hefty sentence is because they probably feel that they've got to. Whether they want to is another thing. But I think they're going to have to. The judiciary and the government shouldn't really be interlinked in the respect that the law is the law. Mm. And the judges are there to enforce it. But of course, we have to be seeing political persuasion and pressure on the judiciary to give certain people certain types of sentences. This is very clear. And I can see this country over the next 4 or 5 years, I can see there being a huge exodus of Indigenous Brits. Huge. And I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people that can get away, that are in the position to get away from it. And that is seismic. I mean, it's just beyond my comprehension that we could be in a position that we're in. My grandfather and many other people of my age, our grandfathers fought and died for our country, for us to be able to live here in peace. And to think that less than 100 years later, Indigenous Brits are feeling like they have to leave to be safe.
If somebody had said that to you 20 years ago, you wouldn't have believed them, would you?
Never in a million years.
No. Let's go back to your journey of the last 6 months. As I knew we would. There's so much has happened that it's going to be near on impossible not to veer off and on because, like I said at the start, there's different levels of madness at the moment in the country. But I want to go back to the madness that you've experienced, because I know that since you switched your channel from watches to politics, you've received death threats, your social media accounts become unmanageable, you're going to need people to assist in responding to direct messages, inquiries.
Yeah.
And I know that you've had family members attacked in the street because of the message that you're delivering, which we've already established is peace and harmony.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, look, since I switched from watches to politics, the channel blew up. I'm getting thousands of emails every week, and I mean thousands. My phone goes mad. I don't know how people get my number, but they get it, and they're WhatsApping you, they're messaging you, etc. It was getting to the point where it's becoming unmanageable, completely unmanageable. And I'm the sort of person that if someone writes to me, I like to try and pay them the respect of at least sending them an answer. But it got to the point where that was actually physically impossible. My channel went from something like 78,000 subscribers to nearly 250,000. And everything just went completely crazy. But it was mostly positive because most people that listen to my message understand that there's nothing sinister in it. The 27th was the peak. That was when we was up. But ever since the 27th, of course, there's been problems. You've got people from the left, we have to say from the left, that are not interested in your message. They're not interested in what you really believe or what's in your heart. They're just interested in shutting down anyone and everything that does not agree with everything that they say. Unless you agree with everything that they want, everything that they believe, everything that they say, you're a fascist. And that's how they'll portray you. Which hurt first, it hurt. I was offended. But then I realised it was ridiculous being offended about being called something that I'm not. They might as well call me a one-legged
astronaut.
I'm not. So it's funny, but it isn't funny when your family starts to get targeted, when people recognise your family and they get spat upon and they get abused in the street. That's not funny. We have an incident. I mean, after the 27th, I had a break booked to go to Spain to see my friend Danny. We booked that back, I think in about March, something like that. And it just so happens I was due to fly out to see Danny about 3 days after the riot started. And someone posted on YouTube that I was on the run. We started a massive rumour that I'd gone on the run, which was start raving bonkers. It was crazy. I mean, as I said at the time, if you go on the run, you tend to just go. You don't, A, tell people you're going, B, when you're going, C, when you're coming home, and D, where you're staying. You don't do any of that, right, if you're going on the run. But this person said I was on the run. That led to one of my family members being assaulted. That led to some threats online. And all of this is now in the hands of the police. And thankfully, the police here in the UK are working with another police force right now. They are taking that very seriously and the assault that it no doubt led to. But we shouldn't be in this position. We should all have freedom of speech. Even the people that I don't agree with, even my detractors, even the other side, for what side that is, I don't want to shut them down, Liam. I want to hear what they've got to say.
Same.
I want to try and have a conversation with them because nothing is ever resolved without talking. Come to an agreement. How do we learn to respect each other? Now, I've been in positions in Brighton where there has been what you might call opposition. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a Queers for Palestine march in Brighton, and I got talking to two people who described themselves as transgender. That's not how I'm describing them. They described themselves as transgender. And I said to them, look, can we have a chat? Because I'm really interested to hear your point of view. And they were, we don't speak to fascists. And I said, well, I'm not a fascist. I just want to chat. Come on, I'll buy you a drink. Let's go and have a chat. No, we're not have a drink with you. Anyway, eventually we got talking in the street. Eventually. They were actually quite nice. And we got on quite well. We spent about half an hour talking. And they eventually said to me, we don't actually agree with this. But we have to. It's forced upon us. It's pressure put upon us as a community. And I said, at the beginning, you called me a fascist. Have you found any of that in me? And they went, no, you're a great guy. But I started off as being a fascist. That they're indoctrinated. Their minds are conditioned by whom I don't know. To believe that everyone that doesn't believe in what they believe in to be a fascist. And I find that very sad for them as well.
Well, it is because they're going to live their entire lives in complete ignorance and they won't learn a thing.
Exactly.
People that I disagree with or people that disagree with me, I love listening to them because I can learn a little bit.
You might learn something.
I can learn a little bit from everyone and I'm grateful for that. I don't agree with everything that you stand for or you believe in. You've got your reasons, I've got mine, but I learnt a thing or two, thank you.
And I learnt something from these two people. There were things that they told me and explained to me that I didn't necessarily agree with, but that I come to understand.
You could see it from their eyes.
And I could see it from their eyes and I appreciated their input. And I think they appreciated mine. And what we left by shaking hands and we left with a smile. And that's the way that it should be. That's the way that it can be, Liam, if people talk. But if we are continually divided by our superiors, by our leaders, by our politicians, who I think this is the worst set of politicians since Tony Blair. We have had the worst set of politicians in the entire history of this nation. Starting with Tony Blair, going right through to Keir Starmer now and everyone in between has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for the people of this country.
What did you think about Keir Starmer taking down Margaret Thatcher's picture from number 10?
Well, I think it just shows his insecurity. is insecure. He should have he should respect the fact that those portraits are there of every. Now, I can't stand Keir Starmer, but the people of Great Britain that bothered to voted him as our Prime Minister. His portrait will now go in number 10, and when he leaves, I believe that portrait should stay there. The people voted for him. And that is democracy. Just because I don't like Keir Starmer doesn't mean to say that I would remove his portrait from Downing Street. I would leave it there as a mark of respect for our democracy, not necessarily him as an individual. But this is British democracy. From Margaret Thatcher, and I know there are plenty of people out there that hated Maggie Thatcher. There will be even more people, I believe, who will hate Keir Starmer. But that is our history. That is the way things are done.
I've noticed that Winston Churchill was now resurfaced. The left have resurfaced him on Twitter and they're giving him a damn good roasting.
Well, they will do because they hate themselves. We were brought up with an identity. I certainly was. I was brought up with an identity. And it's all right for everyone else, it seems, to be proud of their identity and to celebrate their culture and their way of life. And we need to understand that they need to do that. And we do. But as soon as it comes to us wanting to celebrate our culture or our way of life or our history and traditions, all of a sudden that becomes racism. And I don't get it because most of the people of colour that I meet don't get it either. They totally understand that we have our own culture and our own history and our own background. And many of them actually love it. And they say, yeah, you should celebrate it the same as we celebrate ours.
Anybody that's proud of their roots and culture and country, they're being shamed and lambasted for it. They're knocking the pride out of you. They're knocking the love out of you that you got the country. So the Union Jack, for example, is now a symbol of racism to a lot of people. You get people that go on these morning chat shows on St. George's Day. British people slamming St. George's Day. What have you got to celebrate? All the carnage that Great Britain have caused years beyond. It's like what? So we have to live feeling guilty of our past.
Well, they always ignore the good bits as well, because for every bad bit of the British Empire, there's a good bit as well. So much so that, there's a thing called the Commonwealth where countries have wanted to stay with the United Kingdom because we gave them so much in many respects. There were good and bad things about the empire. None of us were here. It's nothing to do with us.
No, totally.
We don't blame the German people of today for the 1930s and the 1940s, which is much more recent in our history than the British Empire.
And that's a great example.
Much more.
I love the German people.
Yeah, great people. I found the Germans to be fantastic. Too good at football, unfortunately, but, we won't go down that route. But, yeah, I mean, I've got the German people have been brilliant, and I've been to Germany dozens of times. I've never been to Germany once with any bad feeling in my heart for the German people because of what happened in the 1930s and the 1940s. But this is the really important thing, Liam, is that the Nazis and the Nazi Party in Germany in the 1930s represented a small proportion of the German nation. It wasn't the peaceful majority that were relevant. They were irrelevant. It was the violent minority that were relevant and that were dangerous. And this is what we face now in the UK. The vast majority of people that live here are peaceful and peace-loving. The vast majority. There's 67 million people in this country. Let's say that 66 million of them can all get on together. That's not really relevant. It's the 1 million that can't get on that represent the danger.
So let's go back to your political commentating, because I obviously know a few people that do the same thing. And I know that when you start commentating on political issues, for the people watching and listening, it ends there. They go back to their life, sit with a family, have a glass of wine, put a film on. Now, the person that's commentating on current affairs, they get backlash from people that disagree with them, and it tends to have, now you tell me, I'm just guessing at the moment, but I can imagine that behind the scenes, things are going on with within your relationships.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, there are a lot of things that go on in the background, and they're not always good. You know, you become a target, you get threats. I walk around in the street now looking over my shoulder pretty much all the time. Is that paranoia? Possibly, because, you know, like I was in the luxury watch business for years. I was looking over my shoulder anyway, you know, so it's nothing new to me. Having all the security at my home is nothing new to me. You know that I've lived like that for years anyway. So the paranoia or the wariness, if you like, has carried on from my previous industry into this one. It's a natural progression for me in many respects. But look, you do become a target. Your life is never finished in the respect that, or your job is never done. You release a video. People might comment on it. They might leave a comment. They watch it. They walk away from it. They're done. But you're not. Every video can have a consequence or bring a reaction that you might not like. Some people, you can say something and some people will take it one way, other people will take it in another. That will lead to completely different reactions. So it's not always fun. Hassle from the family. When I say hassle, I mean immense pressure from your wife, your children, your grandchildren, whoever, to walk away and leave it behind. Why are you doing this? What is it doing to us as a family? The repercussions are dramatic and often endless, leading to assaults on your family, leading to people trying to find out where you live. Many, many things, Liam. So it's not as simple as a lot of people might think that it is, and it's certainly not as easy as people might think that it is. You know, they say, oh, you know, you get fame and adulation and you get paid. Well, that's the good news, right? But I don't actually consider fame to be a good thing. I actually prefer to be unnoticed rather than to be noticed, but it's part of the job.
Especially when 50% of the people that notice you are going to disagree with you.
Exactly, yeah. Thankfully, most people that come up to you are in agreement. They're, I wouldn't say fans, they're viewers, and they like what you do. I don't mind people coming up to me that disagree as long as they're amiable and that we can have a discussion rather than an argument. I don't want to argue in the street. It's not where I want to be. But it comes with a lot of stress. There is a heavy price to pay emotionally, mentally.
How's it affected your head?
I would say it's like a PTSD thing, really. You know, you're always under stress. You're thinking about it 24 hours a day. Even when you go to bed, you're dreaming about it. You're waking up. You're thinking, what's the next move? What do we do next? How do we approach this? How do I try and unite people? Because that's all I'm trying to do, is get people together, get rid of the violence, get rid of the hatred, give people something tangible that they can hold on to and belong to. We all need to belong to something. I believe everyone needs to feel part of something and that they belong somewhere. And right now we have so many people in this country that feel they don't belong here anymore. And that is tragic.
And you're prepared to speak up for those people, irrespective of pressure from family, death threats. Tell me where some of your death threats have come from.
Well, they usually come through email. And unfortunately, the police don't take them very seriously. I don't take them particularly seriously either, if I'm honest. I think if someone is going to come and do something bad to you, they just come and do it. They don't tell you first. But they can be disconcerting, and when they threaten to chop up your grandchildren, I think that's stepping over a line, personally. But the police are not always willing, or they genuinely don't have the resources to follow every threat up. Some, I think, are more tangible, more serious than others. But in general, the threats that come through, I don't tell the family necessarily. They don't even watch my videos these days because they find it too painful. But I don't tell them what people say to me. I don't want to worry them even further than they already are. But is my life in danger? I don't think so, Liam, because I don't consider myself that I've ever said anything that would really want to make people feel that way about me. They might disagree with what I say, but I've never preached any hatred towards anyone. It's always been the opposite.
What's one of the most common things you get accused of being that you're not?
Far right. Far right. I mean, everyone's far right now, aren't they? I mean, you know, anybody slightly right of Trotsky is a member of the far right. It's crazy.
So what's your definition of the far right?
My definition of the far right are people that hate other people just because of the colour of their skin or their religion or because they're different to what they are. They also want to shut those people up. They hate the Jewish community in particular. They hate the Islamic community in particular, which is kind of ironic because they just hate everyone that's not the same as them. That's the real far right.
And to be a far right thoroughbred, shall we say, have you just got to think those things or have you got to act upon those thoughts?
I guess there's no harm. Everyone can have the thoughts, can't they? You're free to think what you like, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I think you're free to think whatever you want.
It's an interesting question and concept.
It's a mad question, yeah.
It's only because when I see people getting sent to jail for writing a Facebook post, for me that's somebody putting their thoughts
on paper
onto a platform. So at what stage do the government start intercepting your private conversations and your private WhatsApp messages, and then they will decide if you're far right or you're not, and then they'll act upon private stuff that you're not really announcing to the world, you're not taking action, you're not protesting, you're just talking to somebody in private about how you feel?
Well, I think any incitement is up for inspection. I mean, I think let's forget far right, far left. Let's just talk about crime. If you incite someone to commit a crime, then I think that should be answerable to the law. So if I try and talk someone into committing a crime, that is a crime for me. And it doesn't really matter what crime we're talking about. It could be a bank robbery, it could be a street robbery or a mugging, or if you conspire or if you incite people to commit crime, for me, that's a crime. If you have a chat between two friends in a room like we are now, that's a chat. But there's a fine line. Where does a chat become conspiracy? That's the problem. That you know, 1 minute you're having a chat, the next minute you're plotting, right? So which one is it? So it's a very difficult thing. But online, we're talking mostly online. For me, the line is conspiring to do something wrong or incitement to do something badly wrong.
Because I've seen a few people jailed now because they've put their opinion online. I agree, it's inflammatory, it's offensive, it's distasteful, but does it warrant being put in a cage for 2.5 years?
No, definitely not. I mean, people have been suggesting that other people go and do things or they would like to do things themselves. Clearly, they're not going to do it. I think clearly they're not going to do it. They're just venting their anger. Now, that could maybe lead to a fine or a warning or whatever. But jail, absolutely not.
So these death threats you've been receiving, have you reported any? Have you spoke to any colleagues?
I have one going on right now that is being investigated. That is not so much a death threat. That was an assault that was inspired by someone else. I can't go into that because it's an ongoing investigation, but I'll give you another example. I had a threat where someone just said, I'm going to kill you. I took it to the police and they said, you know, it doesn't really mean a lot, Paul, does it? How many times have you said, you've probably said to kids, you do that and I'll kill you. Right? It's just something that someone can say. It's context. Do they really mean it? But then we see people going to jail for posting something on Facebook for the same thing. But these Facebook posts, etc., the police have worked in the exact opposite way. They've been going in heavy without people actually doing anything.
And you've had a police officer say that to you in person?
Yeah.
Not only would I imagine a lot of police officers now, especially the Met Police, are feeling very conflicted as to what's right and what's wrong. I wonder how many people are leaving their job and how many people that were thinking about joining the Met Police and now I'm out?
I believe that the vast majority of police officers are concerned about one thing, pension. That's it. And do I blame them for that? No. Look, if you spent 20 years in the job and you got a pension and you're 2 years away from retirement, I don't know how long they do. You'd be interested and very much guided by that pension that's coming at the end of your career, and I get that. But I couldn't do their job for any money. I couldn't do it. I could not carry out some of the orders that they're having to carry out because they're, my question to police officers, and I have friends who are police officers, my question to them is always this: where would you draw the line? As an individual police officer, where is your line in the sand that you won't cross for money?
Yeah, I'd imagine some are absolutely horrified what they've been asked to do of late. Horrified.
I would imagine they are.
Imagine being the police officer that had to go and arrest that 11-year-old boy in front of his family and escort him out from his home, mob-handed.
They seem willing enough. Whether and this is where I'm confused. This is where I'm glad I'm not in that position because I couldn't do it.
Me neither.
I would have to say to my superior, you know what, mate? Poke the job up your arse. I can't do that.
Yeah, no way.
No way am I doing that. No way am I arresting a 70-year-old grandmother with a pacemaker and putting her in handcuffs. I'm not doing it.
Knowing that you're going to send her to jail.
Yeah. It ain't for me. And I don't care how big the pension is. And I don't care how much money you're paying me every month. I'll go and sweep the roads. I'd feel more pride.
So since you've had a little breather away from YouTube and the madness, and you're now back in the UK, what's your home life like?
Hectic, because I'm under immense pressure from the family to either retire completely and stop doing YouTube, social media, and not just the politics stuff, but just stop it altogether and just retire, which I can't do because my mind is active and, I just get bored. But I'm under pressure from the family to basically to leave the UK, to leave our home. And that is really, really sad. It's not something that I want to do.
Is it an option?
It's going to happen. It has to happen, Liam. I don't think that this country is safe anymore. I don't think it's safe for me. But more importantly, I don't think it's safe for the children and for the girls, for the women. So whilst I feel that I have a duty to my viewers, I have a duty to my country, I have a duty to my loyalty to this country and what it's done for me over the years. My biggest responsibility and my biggest duty is to take care of my family and do what's best for them. Deep in my heart, I know the right thing to do is to take my family away from the UK. This is not the country that we were born and bred in and brought up in. I don't recognise it. My wife sat down the other night and she cried her eyes out. She said, Paul, I just want to feel safe in my own country and I don't feel safe anymore. We got to go. So I'm going to have to give in and we will be leaving.
The whole family?
The whole family.
And that's a decision made?
Yep.
So here's a question then. There's a lot of people that clearly don't see the country through the same eyes as you. You're obviously comfortable saying exactly how you feel, how you think, and put it out to the masses. You get millions of views a month. But what does your wife see that other people don't see that make her want you to take her out of this country?
She watches the news. She sees through the mainstream media lies. She has got her eyes open, probably because I make sure her eyes are open. She's watched the rise in knife crime. She's watched the rise in street robbery. She's watched the rise of abuse amongst women in general and children and things like Southpaw. It's there for everyone to see. And it depends how much your eyes are open, I guess, because I think we've become an I'm all right, Jack nation. This is part of the problem in this country. Far too many people are happy in their little bubble. They shut their front door the rest of the world is outside. But trust me when I tell you, and listen very carefully to this, your world is closing in. It won't be long before you can't just shut your front door and you are safe from the world that you think you live in, because with the crime stats the way they are and the way they're heading in this country and the laws the way they're going and our lack of freedoms, what future do we have for our children? What future do we have for our grandchildren? It breaks me heart to say it, because I love this country. I love the people of this country, well, most of them. I love our way of life. I love our culture. I love our traditions. But it's all being eroded. It's all being taken away from us, slowly but surely. And as one individual, you can fight a battle. And I don't mean physically. I'm talking about, speak up for a cause. You can do all those things. You can do the best you can. But when the government start to arrest you for trying to tell the truth or to trying to help people, or they start trying to demonise you for wanting harmony amongst everyone, the battle's lost.
And do you feel like you're a target now?
I think everyone that speaks out is a target. Everyone. Anyone that has a platform, anyone that tells the truth, anyone that exposes what's going on, anyone that talks about crime, anyone that talks about immigration is a target.
What would it take for you to return to the UK? What would need to happen? What changes would need to be made?
I'm not sure that that's possible. I think we're done.
And you're how old?
63 now.
This is coming from a 63-year-old man that's loved his country his entire life, brought up on a council estate in South London, went to a very, very rough school in the 70s, so not much shocks you. And you love the country.
I do love the country,
but
mate.
You no longer believe in it.
I don't believe in the people that run it. And I'm disappointed with the people. Look at the last election. We have a government. There's 67 million people in the UK. And we have a government that was elected, I think, with 11 million votes. The apathy. Where is your passion? Are you too busy with your latte or going down the gym or whatever you're doing? You couldn't even be bothered to go out and vote for your future, for your children's future. You couldn't get off your arse and go and vote. I'm sure it was 11. It might have been 14 million, but if it was 11 or 14, it doesn't really matter. It's an insignificant number by comparison to the people that live here. 67 million. And this government were elected with one of the smallest votes in our history. And I'm not just slagging off the Labour government here. It started with Tony Blair, and it's gone right through with successive governments, including all the recent governments with the Tories, who have let us all down, have lied to us, have not delivered what we asked them to deliver. And if you don't get what you ask for, if you don't get what you vote for, your democracy no longer exists. So we're done.
What a sad way to end this interview. Although there's a beautiful side to it, because you're now going to sail off into the sunshine and live a nice, peaceful life, and your family are no longer going to live in fear because you've spoken out. So that's beautiful, but just sad that it took this for that to happen.
Yeah, and Liam, I feel an immense amount of guilt and upset for the people that can't get out. I'm one of the lucky ones that can get out. And I know there'll be people out there that are now probably going to dislike me and say, oh, you're jumping ship, you're running away. I will continue to have my say. I will continue to love this country. I'll continue to do my best for the people of this country. But it has to be from the safety of a country where we're safe. And I have to look after my wife, my children and my grandchildren. That is my number one duty. That's my number one loyalty. I actually don't want to leave, but we have to. I think we all have to. I said it in a video weeks ago. If you have the means, if you have the capability, leave now before it's too late. I don't see any future for us.
I wonder how many people watching and listening will realise the magnitude of your words and what you're doing. You feel safer as a migrant in another country than you do in your own
Yeah, absolutely.
as a citizen.
And there'll be people out there that, I mean, because everyone will know that I voted for Brexit, and they'll go, "You bloody hypocrite, you voted for Brexit, now you want to leave the country." Well, the reason I want to leave the country is because we didn't get the Brexit that we asked for. 17 million people voted to stop illegal migration. Quite clear, very clear. We voted at 3 general elections. Migration, illegal migration and immigration has pretty much been number one on the list. Not because we don't like foreigners, not because we don't like the Polish people or the Germans. It's because we don't want violent criminals coming to our country unchecked. Those votes have been ignored. So if you can't beat them, you may as well leave them. And that's the bottom line. We are leaving because our votes have been ignored for 20 years. And if they're not going to listen to our votes, we don't want to be here. I don't want to live in a country that has no democracy. Democracy is about a government acting upon your vote, not doing their best to deny it. And that's what's happened.
And will you still continue with your page so people that follow you, there's no difference?
This journey's going to take a year, maybe longer. But it is one that's in progress. But I'll continue to do what I do. Nothing will change. I will still speak about my home. I love my country. I love my people, my followers. And I'll continue to do my best. But I need to secure the safety and the future of my family. My granddaughters are very dear to me. I need to get them in a school, ironically, an international school, where they will learn the things that we want them to be taught, where they learn about the good things, and where they're not being taught to be ashamed of themselves, of who they are, of where they come from, and their history. We want them to grow up free, and feeling proud of who they are. They're not going to get that here. So we have to get them out. But I'll continue to do what I do, slightly different format, but it will, you may not even know it will be just a different studio. But obviously I will tell people, I will take people on the journey with me and show them what it's like to have to get out, to have to move, to have to leave. Not because I've done anything wrong, this is out of choice. It's out of choice for my family. It's out of a necessity for my family. And I feel dreadful for the people that cannot do the same thing.
And on a final note then, I like to end on a
positive.
On a positive.
Try.
Yeah. Tell me what you're looking forward to in the next 2-3 years.
What I'm looking forward to is seeing this country, hopefully, at least find some sense of responsibility when it comes to voting. People should now realise that if you don't vote, you might get for what someone else has voted for. That's the first thing. I hope for that. I hope to get out abroad to a new home, have a new start, to have a suntan that's real, and to enjoy the rest of my life, to enjoy my toys. I love my bikes. I like getting out on a boat when you can, and just relaxing. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I say this country is lost. There is a chance. And that can only be done through the ballot box. It has to be done sensibly, legally, peacefully and properly. The big lesson that everyone's learned this year, more than anything else, is that you get who you vote for or who you don't vote for. Never, ever forget that. And that's why the next time there's a general election, you will see the Labour Party completely obliterated.
Well, on that note, now, from somebody that knows you a lot better than people that subscribe to your channel, I know that you do deserve a nice life and a nice future and to be safe, because I know that you're full of love and compassion and you do genuinely want to unite people. And I know you have different friends of faiths and colours.
Yeah.
I know you better than people that watch you, certainly people that want to criticise your work. And I, for one, have found you a breath of fresh air, being as balanced as you are. And I hope everything works out. And I wish you and your family nothing but the best of health.
Thank you, Liam. And there's always a spare room at my new place as well for you to come and stay, you know that, brother.
I'm there.